Thank you for being here. Who's here for the very first time? Awesome. Awesome. That is fantastic. Thanks for coming. We always have new people, so that's really cool. And who's been coming for 4 years off and on? Cool. Who thinks they've never missed one? Oh, my friends. Who else? I saw another hand back here. It's just us. It's the supermodels. They're on a lot of our materials. Okay. So today we're going to talk about Alzheimer's and dementia. Yay! Do you know, some people wouldn't come this month because of what we're talking about, because it hits too close to home. So it's not really a door breaker, you know, as far as people coming. But we have such good stuff to share with you today, so I'm glad you're here. First, let's honor our veterans that served to make it possible for us to do things like this. If the veterans would please stand if you'd like to and be acknowledged. Thank you for your service. And if some of you brave veterans would like to come up to the front of the room and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be fantastic. Good, some are coming. Good, good, good. Come on up. And I want to acknowledge my team. If it weren't for my team, we couldn't do any of this. I have so many people helping put this on. It's unbelievable. Bretta, thank you for trying to push the button. All right. Are you ready? Floyd and Lori, you're going to lead us? Very good. All right, so we're going to do it without the mic, and you two, just strong voices leading us along. Thank you.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Awesome. All right, well, let's begin. We do a different topic every single month. And even if we talk about the same topic, let's say dementia, for example, we always have different experts, different information. But the truth is, as we age, there's unlimited topics and unlimited overwhelming issues, so we'll never run out of things to talk about. Amen? So that's why we're putting this on. We became a nonprofit last year, Empowered Seniors, a 501c3. And after COVID, we decided to just kind of lay low a little bit and meet here, but not make a lot of noise, because we didn't want people to feel like we were being irresponsible. And all through this year, we've been pretty quiet. But we are getting ready to really start promoting the seminars to new people, because every day we have people say, I didn't even know that this existed. And so what we're focused on is helping with overwhelming issues, everything to do with aging. And then our focus in particular is housing, because shelter's important. Where you live and how you live impacts the quality of your life. My husband Randy and I have been realtors for decades here in the local market. And we saw a need for this, and so our nonprofit focuses on all aging issues, but in particular, aging in place. How can you age in place as safely as possible? Should it be your current home or a different home? How can you be safe, get the help you need as time goes on? Thinking about downsizing in the future, we have Downsizers Club, which is really very fun. You get a 3-ring binder, and we meet once a month. Right now we're meeting the first Tuesday of every month at PBS Kansas from 2 to 3:30. And we'll open up more groups as we go, so there's different options, because sometimes people wouldn't know if we will do one on Saturday or do one in the evening, so we plan to do that eventually. We'd like to get this under our belt a little bit so that we feel confident and we're ready to expand. So we're practicing on a few people. So who are Downsizers Club's members right now? Even if you've already moved, you can join Downsizers Club. Okay. So a lot of them have already moved. How are you enjoying your new places? Awesome. Okay. All right, let's go to the next slide. So I'm Katherine Ambrose, a Realtor, a downsizing coach, a certified senior housing professional, and a senior move manager. The move management helps fund our nonprofit. So we fund these efforts by having education sponsors, the people in the room that believe in community education, and they're here to help put this on, and also through our move management. We have very reasonable move management fees, and after we pay for our labor and our expenses, that helps fund the events that we're doing. So if you know someone that's thinking about moving and they could use some help, keep us in mind. We'd like to give them a free consultation. All right, next slide. So these are all of our education partners. We have KMH, Senior Living, Blue STEM Communities in Heston and Newton. Are you here today? Blue STEM. Woo, thank you. Okay, very good. And Adult Day Services in Hutchinson. Comfort and Love Senior Care Homes. A Comfort and Love here today? They just had some personnel changes, so I wasn't sure. American Senior Benefits. Cherie, the blonde, curly hair. That's how you know her. Oxford Senior Living. Hi, ladies. Mariner Wealth Advisors. Galen, okay. Sedgwick Plaza. Providence, I saw Pam. Pam, thank you. Adult Day Services, Colleen Marshall. Okay, she's just getting started. Morris Lang Law Firm. Thank you very much, Alex. Fleeson and Gooing. Oh, duh. 2 huge banners. Very good, awesome. So we're going to hear from the attorneys at the end. So we're going to present a lot of dementia information, borrow some paper from a friend, because we're going to be giving you a lot of information. And at the end, we're going to have the attorneys in the room come up and address some of the legal concerns. So pay attention, guys, because the test is coming. And we want you to be able to address some of what you heard and what will help them. Humana, brand new sponsor. Thank you very much for being here. And Village Cooperative, did April make it? Yes, you did, April. April paid for this out of her own pocket today because she believes so much in what we're doing. And she wanted to know if we'd take her personal credit card, and we said yes. Thank you, April. That is true commitment. And I'm very excited about the project that you're working on. It's not a fit for everyone, but the ones that it is a fit for, amazing. In fact, I've already talked to my mom about when you go to the west side. Is my mother here? Oh my gosh, that's embarrassing. Is she not here? She has company coming in today, so she's very nervous. So I think she ditched me. All right, let's go to the next slide. Seminar sponsors. These are the companies that specifically sponsor the seminar. Next. The companies that specifically sponsor the television show. We could not do the television show if it weren't for these sponsors here. So thank you very much. All right. So for the first time ever, someone else planned the entire seminar for me. The first time. And she didn't plan a little bit. She did the whole thing. And Fiona Harper, thank you so much. Come on up. She brought a lot of information for you. We've got good slides, and she's arranged speakers. So I'm going to hand it over to you so you can take it and run. Make sure you save enough time so everybody gets a chance and that we save room for the attorneys. So.
All right, well, I'm Fiona from Changing Minds. Can you guys hear me okay? I always have to eat the microphone here. So if any of you have seen me before, you know my struggles with my brain. I can't remember people's names very well and that kind of thing. Well, I had to tell you something happened to me yesterday because it's funny. So I was training some staff members, and I was trying to talk to them about Namenda and Aricept, the medicines that we kind of use for dementia. And I forgot the forgetting medications. Could not get the name. So I forgot the forgetting medications. You can't make this stuff up. It's bad, right? So we're all concerned about it. And what I want to do is bring up Galen Green Raina, Becky Papa, and Denise, come on up as well. All right. And we can start that slideshow, too, if you...
Okay. And we put it on our template,
Great.
so it's all
Yep,
in one thing.
that looks
Okay.
good. Okay. You can go back one.
Can everyone hear Fiona okay? You
All right.
might even put your lips practically
I know,
on it.
right on it. Right after you. Swap and spit. All right. So the truth about living with dementia, knowledge is power. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what dementia is. I think a lot of us know about that. But I also wanted to give you a little information about what you can then do about it. If you're starting to be like me, have a little bit of problems with memory, you can do a few things about it. And latest research kind of shows that. So we want to talk about that a little bit. Next slide. I need a clicker. So you can optimize your health. We know that your brain is very affected by your body health. We know the gut and the brain are very, very connected. They've done a lot of research on that. And so if a lady or a man gets a bladder infection, a lot of times you'll see them get confused if they're over the age of 50. The reason is because inflammation in your body affects your thinking. It affects your brain. How many of you have seen that with a loved one, with yourself? Anybody? Yeah. And what's interesting about it is they have a bladder infection, you give them an antibiotic, and they remain confused sometimes for months. The reason is you treat the infection, the inflammation lasts longer in the brain, and it's a problem. So we really want to shore up our brain. I've given you a lot of information on your tables, and we'll be talking a little bit about DESC, diet, exercise, sleep, stress, social interaction, and cognitive stimulation. That's what my ladies are up here for. Next slide. Oh, that's me. You can go on. Galen Green, she is a co-founder of Changing Minds. She is a PTA. She also had the honor of taking care of her mom, Mona, at home while working full-time. She had to coordinate a lot of care until the day Mona passed. And Mona, we have a tribute page on our website, Changing Minds LLC, to Mona. And how long did your mom live with dementia? 16 years from the time she was diagnosed. Here's the deal. We're almost all diagnosed in moderate stage. Yeah. Raina is next. Okay. Raina Nisis also took care of her parents. Your mother passed away at what age? 65 from dementia. And your dad passed like 20 years later. Yeah. And Raina would go up to Kansas City to take care of her dad, also keeping him at home. Very, thank you, Catherine. Very hard to do, but they took the time to do it. So what is dementia? Well, it's a brain disorder that affects memory, problem solving, judgment, language, and other cognitive abilities. And I wanted to show you that the loss usually results in interference with daily living. That's how we sort of know that things are going wrong. We're not driving the same. We're not putting the toast in the toaster. We're putting it somewhere else. We're doing things just different, not like we used to do. And that's how we kind of know it's going on. So next slide. This is actually dementia. Dementia is the umbrella term. Have you ever wondered, well, what's Alzheimer's and what's dementia? What's the difference? Dementia is the umbrella term. Alzheimer's disease is under the dementia umbrella, as well as vascular dementia, which means your blood pressure or your blood flow is not really good and it's affecting your cognition. Lewy body dementia, it's sort of like Parkinson's symptoms. And then frontotemporal dementia is the thing that Bruce Willis was just diagnosed with, and he cannot speak and he cannot understand language. So that is interesting because his memory is fine. He just can't speak or understand language. So you can see that brain change really is affected by a lot of different things. And then we also have things that, for example, if you're stressed, if you're depressed most of your life, your chance of developing a type of dementia is increased. So we want to keep that down. Next slide. So who has it? So these are just the U.S. statistics. So 65 to 70 years of age, and for some reason my percentages are gone, but that's about 27%. 75 to 84 is around 27%. And then about 37%, and then about 27% of 85 plus years of age, because generally, if you have dementia by the time you're in your 60s, you may not live into your 80s. So that's one of the reasons for that stat. It is costing Medicare billions of dollars. And unless we start taking control of our health, because we do not have a medicine to cure it, we don't. And we are years away from that. Unless we start taking control of our health and being proactive, these stats are going to go way up, right? So what if you're worried about it like me, right? So you can talk to the person in their family. The doctor will talk to the family. They do a thing called AQ21. Your spouse will be asked questions about how they think your brain's doing. Cognitive tests, like there's one called the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. It is a cognitive test. It stinks, too. I hate it. But it'll kind of tell us what areas you're having difficulty with. Brain scans, MRIs is usually what's done. We can do a thing called neuroreader. The hippocampus is mainly affected with dementia, so the hippocampus can be measured, and that's called a neuroreader. Genetic tests. Has anybody heard of APOE4? Yeah, all right. We have a person that leads an Alzheimer's national support group, and she has certainly heard of APOE4. It is the gene that is most commonly associated with dementia if it is genetic. So if one parent has APOE4, you might have about 35 to 40% chance of developing dementia genetically. If both parents have it, you have about a 70% chance of developing Alzheimer's type dementia genetically. It's important to know your APOE4 status, because then you might do something about it. It might actually spur you on to help your health. Here's the thing that Teepa Snow, who was my trainer, taught me. Here's what you can do. You can do your own yearly cognoscopy, and it's called an animal fluency test. And just like you have your colonoscopy, which I don't have, you can do your cognoscopy. So what you do is in 1 minute, you name all the different types of animals that you can remember. Dog, cat, horse, cow. So what people tend to do, they go through the household pets first, and then they go through the farm, and then they go through the zoo. That's healthy. That's okay. That's not cheating, right? But what you want to know is if the next year you go down in the amount that you can remember, go get a cognoscopy. Go talk to your doctor. It's just a simple, free test that you can do. Very important. And then talk to your doctor about treatment options. There might be some things that they can do to get your stress level down, shore up your diet. You know, if we're diabetic, maybe our blood glucose, our A1C, is not going as well as we would hope. And so that can really affect cognition. And so talk to your doctor, and he can help you with that, all right? And then optimize your health. So I am at a Dr. Bredesen Recode practitioner. I'm one of 2 nurses in the world who is certified in that program. And we use diet, exercise, sleep, stress, social interaction, and cognitive stimulation. This has been shown to increase what we call neuroplasticity. In other words, your brain will flourish. It will actually grow neurons. We know we can do that now. So you can go to the next slide. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to start out with the diet on your table. Can I borrow this?
And
On
Fiona,
your
while you're
table.
getting ready,
Yeah.
we're going to have Paulette and Eric come up also.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, we are. We're going to take just a few minutes. It's
great.
not long.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So I put on your table basically eating the rainbow and showing you the nutrients and the help that it causes by eating a rainbow. A lot of the doctors now, Dr. Rudy Tanzi, a lot of the high-end research doctors are recommending the Mediterranean diet. I am attached to the KU Alzheimer's Research Center in Shawnee Mission, and they are doing the Mediterranean diet. And it's one of the things we're going to encourage you to get signed up for. It's called LEAP, and that paper is also on your table. So diet, what we want to do is decrease carbs. We want to increase fresh food and optimize your brain health. Of course, before you make any change to your diet, you want to talk to your doctor first, right? We want to make sure that if you have a cardiac diet, that you can do this pretty well. But that's the Mediterranean diet. And no, you don't have to eat olives. All right. And then Raina is going to talk about sleep optimization.
And you're welcome to stand, Raina, if you'd be more comfortable.
Is this on? Mm-hmm. Okay.
You are attached to a cord.
All right, so I got to make sure
But
I
it looks
walk
long.
over here. How's
It's
that?
very lengthy.
How many of you had 8 hours of sleep last night? Oh, good. There's more here than a lot of places, so that's good to know. So sleep is so important. We are finding out so much about sleep. When we sleep, our body does so many things, and one of the things that it does is it cleans out, kind of has almost like a street sweeper in our brain that helps to bring out some of those things that can cause inflammation, as Fiona was talking about. So some things to think about to improve your sleep if you're having trouble with it is to avoid caffeine, especially later in the evening. That's probably not a revelation, is it? You drink decaffeinated coffee later in the evening, don't you? So thinking about when was the last time, if you're having trouble sleeping, think about when was the last time you had caffeine, and can you push that back a little bit? Also, napping is one of those things that you might want to consider. How many of you nap regularly? So napping can be good for us unless we're napping at 6 o'clock at night, and then we're waking up and not going to sleep until late, right? So consider what you're doing, what your schedule looks like. We have a natural kind of downturn in our energy later in the afternoon, so maybe that's the time we need to take advantage of exercising or do something like that. So another thing to consider is, when are you exercising? If we get that heart pumping and all of those things going too close to bedtime, again, we're going to lay and stare at the ceiling. So we want to consider when we're exercising. We never want to discourage exercising, but we want to be intentional about when we're doing that. Also, if we're having difficulty sleeping, we want to remember to not lay in bed and stare at the clock or the ceiling or anything like that. Who has some good tricks that they use to help yourself fall back to sleep? We want to make sure to find some things, whether it be counting sheep or deep breathing exercises, to help you get back to sleep quickly. If you find your brain racing too much to be able to fall right back to sleep, get up, go do something, maybe make a list of those things you're thinking about, and then come back to bed. If we have the habit of laying in bed, not sleeping, our body learns to do that, and that develops a habit. That's not a good habit, right? So we want to make sure to consider that, as well as what does our sleep environment look like. We want to make sure that we have a dark room. Sometimes when that moon is out full, it is hard to get a dark room, isn't it? So we have some sleep masks back there for free. If you'd like to pick up a sleep mask and try that, to be able to get that good environment, make sure you have a good temperature, and that you have an environment that's created for the best sleep possible. Also, we talked about caffeine intake, but sometimes just fluid intake. How many people woke up in the middle of the night last night and had to use the restroom? I think almost every hand is up, right? Because it does happen, but if we are aware of how much water or how much fluid we're taking in and when we're doing that, again, just something to play with, the timing that you cut yourself off, and see if that can help you get a solid night's sleep, or maybe wake up a little less. And last is just to make sure that you get help. If your sleep is not good, it is impacting your health. If you're snoring, there could be sleep apnea. If you're not able to fall asleep or stay asleep, talk to your doctor. It really is important. I think we take sleep for granted, but we are finding that it is so important for our brain health to get good sleep. So take advantage of these tips and talk to your doctor if you're not finding yourself feeling rested when you wake up, or getting a good 8 hours at least at night.
Thank you, Raina. I'm going to do exercise just very quickly, because exercise is so personalized. I'm not going to go on long. But I want you to shout out, what kind of exercise do you think is good for your brain? Walking. What else? Swimming. Very good. What else? Pickleball. All right. Yeah. Okay. So walking, they say, what, 10,000 steps a day? I want to know the guy who decided that number, because it's random. I don't get it, right? Walking is very good. The number one things are Tai Chi, yoga, line dancing, and square dancing. And they really are not sure why. But when they're doing brain scans and brain tests, they find that those are the best. But definitely swimming, it's an all body, absolutely. And I love pickleball, so I'm all about it. All right. So we're going to go on to stress reduction, and that is Becky Papa. Or excuse me, I'm going to do it, aren't I? Stress reduction. I'm doing that one too. Told you I had a brain problem. So stress reduction, very, very important. If we have anxiety or depression, we have a greater chance by far of developing dementia. And I stayed up here, by the way, because it makes me taller. I like this. So I want you to do a simple breathing exercise with me. You're going to calm down your fight, flight, or fright in the brain. It's called the amygdala. It looks like this, right? You breathe in through the nose 2 counts and out through the mouth, pursed lips 4. On the out breath, relax your shoulders. Let's do it one more time. 2 counts in, 4 counts out through pursed lips, and relax the shoulders. You just calmed your amygdala. You do it 3 times. If you're about to have a stressful conversation or your son is calling and asking for more money, you go ahead and do that. You know what he's going to ask for. And you can kind of calm yourself down a little bit. It actually works, right? Okay, so that's my stress reduction. Social interaction is going to be Becky Papa.
Hi, everyone. You are here being social. That's pretty awesome. How many of you, raise a hand, if you have just a core group of friends that are there no matter what, could be family, that you can call, rely on, cry to, laugh with? Awesome. Okay, I saw lots of hands. That is so, so very important to brain health. It's that connection that our brains crave, that connection. It really is considered by researchers a fundamental need for overall wellness and brain health. So there's lots of research out there. I'm not going to bore you with any of the statistics, but I wrote down a couple of things that I wanted to make sure I remembered to tell you, and that is that, we're all lonely sometimes, right? I mean, we all feel lonely. Even if we're in a crowd or with other people, we can still have that feeling of loneliness, and that's normal. It's our perception, though, of that ongoing chronic loneliness that we want to avoid. And so researchers have found that overall health is affected. People that are lonely, chronically lonely, are more likely to be admitted to a nursing home.
Which is probably the last place they want to be.
Exactly. We're all here because we all want to be independent as long as possible. The accelerated cognitive decline is very noticeable in the research. Cardiovascular health is affected with loneliness and isolation. So just a few things, and impaired immunity as well. You're more likely to get an illness, or suffer from something if you are lonely and feel isolated. So what they've also found then is that when you are more social, then you decrease that sense of anxiety, depression, your self-esteem goes up, you can feel much better about yourself, get better sleep, and there was one other thing I wanted to make sure I didn't forget, but I think I covered it. I think I got it. But, I forget every day. Fiona and I were talking earlier. I was like, yesterday I forgot 3 names of people that I know very well. And it was a little like, oh, my gosh.
So some of that is normal. And so don't panic. Like, be curious about it, maybe investigate, maybe start talking to doctors about it. But it's normal. And if you remember, even when you were a teenager, you had some of those moments too.
Yeah. So just the last thing I wanted to I know, you're all here. You're being social, and that's awesome. How many of you actually meet new people when you come to this seminar? I encourage you to sit with someone that you haven't met before next time you're here and have some new friends. You can do challenging things. You can learn. You can and learn a variety of things. Teach somebody. You all have so much knowledge from your lifetime. Reach out and help someone learn something that that they would love to learn. Just share. And hugs are really great. touch, human touch. I mean, that's what we crave. So I'm going to stand in the back at the end, and if anybody wants a hug, I'll be back there.
Aw. So
And
nice.
Becky gets the best hugs too.
Yes,
Thank
she
you.
does.
Really, I think that is so important because I hear from a lot of people that say, "Well, I don't want to be around other people. I don't need to be around other people." So, how many of you know people that would never go attend a seminar or go do something social, like attend a dance or attend something? Okay, a lot, and maybe if they knew it could affect their heart, their cognitive ability, and that they have more of a chance of being, in a nursing home, maybe they knew some of these things, that we're social creatures, we're designed to be social.
There's lots of online social things to do, too, for those people who really don't want to get out.
That's good.
You know.
Unless they're doing online with phishing, where they think they're talking to a sexy older man and it's a Nigerian
I don't mean
princess
that
or
kind of thing.
something,
Yeah, no.
and they need money.
Yeah.
Let's don't have pretend friends.
Right. So I'm going to talk about cognitive stimulation. I hate it. Brain HQ is a great app. It does cost a little bit. I think it's like $14 a month, but it's one of the ones that really helps you grow in your tracking of different types of things that you can do cognitively for your memory, but also just for mental gymnastics, basically. But how many people do crossword or word search or any of that? Yeah, it's just as good. It's just as good. But one thing I wanted to say about socialization is that is actually exercising your memory. All of you, by your age, are social geniuses. You know how to socialize. Have you ever sat with a teenager and they just look at you and kind of drool? I mean, they don't know what to say. My daughter was chatty Cathy until about 12, and then she just sat there like, I'm like, what the heck happened? So you guys know how to socialize, and you can do it in your own way, but that is great for cognitive stimulation. Every day that I talk to somebody else, I learn something, and that's important to me because I need to learn with my brain, right? Very important. So you can go to the next slide, but anyway, desk, very important, and that's based on the latest research with KU Alzheimer's Research Center, and you do have the LEAP handouts there. It's a free program. You can get online and sign up. Every week, they send a brain teaser, Caregiver's Corner, and they have a video from Dr. Swerdlow or Dr. Burns or one of them up there who are actually Alzheimer's researchers, and they make it fun. It's really good. They also have Rachel Sandoval, who's a nutritionist. They have a person that talks about exercise. They're fantastic, and it's a free program. So, all right. So one of the things I wanted to go back to with diet, go back to chronometer. Next one. So Chronometer is also a free app, and if you have time, I can show you how to use it. You can get on there. It'll figure out how many calories you need a day, and it will actually track. You put in all of the food that you eat, and you can even pop in things like me, M&Ms, right? That was my, all my colors was my M&Ms this morning. That's why I am the way I am. But it will track what micronutrients you need, what macronutrients you need. It'll tell you what you're lacking, right? So I was taking like multivitamins and different things. When I did mine, I was lacking potassium and zinc, and that was it. That's all I needed. I didn't have to go buy any more multivitamins. That's all I've got. So it's a great app. It's free. The next one is Brain HQ, and that's the one that costs. Next slide.
Next slide.
That's the one that costs, but you can also find free versions, or you can sign up for LEAP, and they'll send you a brain teaser every week. Galen Green is a PTA, physical therapy assistant. She's going to talk to you a little bit about home safety as well. Very important for your health because we want to prevent accidents. When you break your hip, it's a problem. So giving this to Galen.
Hi there. As seniors, and I do fall into that category, so I can talk about seniors. We are faced with ever-increasing number of threats to our health and well-being. You can't turn on the television or pick up a newspaper that you don't hear about some new form of cancer or something that affects heart disease. How about the new strain of COVID, or even this new strange thing called monkeypox? Yeah, weird. But that's a problem. So, but would you be surprised to learn that the National Institute on Aging actually reports that the greatest risk to us is falling? Yeah. 1 in 4 Americans over 65 years or older will fall each year. These falls can be devastating. And trust me, I do home health physical therapy, so I see them all the time. The problem also is these numbers will amplify if you're talking about a person that's living with dementia. Not only does dementia affect your cognition, but it also affects your vision. As the disease progresses, your field of vision decreases. So as you're walking or moving around, you may not notice the throw rug that's turned over, or you may not notice that your oxygen cord is wrapped around your walker leg. Not only that, but you may see these things but not recognize it as a danger. So we have to be very careful about how we look at our homes and make it a practice to go through and kind of look for things that could be a danger for us. I've seen people that will say, that rug has been there for 15 years and it's never been a problem, but here I am recovering from a broken hip. So, and there are a lot of things that we can do to make our homes safer. So I'm just going to kind of try to hit a few of them that might be something that you want to look at. Make sure your power cords are out of the way. This seems really obvious, but I can't tell you how many times I'll go into a house and there'll be a power cord from the outlet to the recliner that goes right across the pathway for like a heating pad. Or in the bed, same thing. They get up, the heating pad's tangled around their foot, and the next thing you know, they've got a broken hip or a head injury. So you have to be careful with those things. Another obvious one is slips on wet spots, little spills. Myself, it's the dumbest thing, but have you ever had your ice maker drop out an extra cube from your refrigerator? I had this happen a couple of years ago and I didn't see it. We have hardwood floors. I slipped on that little spot on the floor and I ended up tearing my rotator cuff, and I was out of work 7 months after having this shoulder reconstructed. Easy, it happens so quick. So be on the lookout for spills, those sort of things. Something else that attributes to a lot of falls is dizziness. You might check, if you're starting to feel that you're having problems with dizziness, check with your medical provider and see if any of your medications that could be causing that. It could be a side effect. See if it is, and if it is, see if there's alternate medications that you could change to. Another thing that causes dizziness you may not be aware of is blood pressure drops. We see that a lot when you go from sitting to standing or lying to sitting. So I like to tell people when they're getting up in the night, which I think we determined that most everybody does, set up on the edge of the bed. They say to sit for a minute. Now I know you're in a hurry, but try to take a few beats at least and make sure you don't have any little birds flying around in your head before you jump up to run to the restroom. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk about was urgency. You know, we've all been there where, oh my God, I have got to get there, and you jump and you run. I've seen so many falls from this, and as a matter of fact, Fiona was talking about my mom. She did that very thing. She got up in the wee hours one morning and raced to the bathroom. Her sock feet hit that tile floor and they went out from under her, and she went down, and she went down hard, and she broke her hip. So that was the beginning of a long, painful decline for her. So be wary of that. And if you are one of those that sleep with socks because your feet get cold, think about wearing some of those gripper socks. So if you do get up and you just can't help it, you run, you're not going to slip on those tile floors. Also, back to the dizziness thing, when you're sitting and you get up to walk, stand for just a beat or two. It doesn't have to be long. Let your blood pressure equalize and then go on about your walk. lighting. You want to make sure your house is well lit. You'd be surprised how many times I walk into a house and it's dim in there. People trip over things. Their remote has fallen on the floor and they stand up and they step on it and turn their ankle and they're down. Okay, sorry, I'm not keeping it close enough to me. And the other thing to do, your pathway to the bathroom for the night, make sure you've got some night lights in there so you can see what you're doing there. And also you want to be wary of pets. Do we all have pets? Yeah, good. I have a big old Irish wolfhound, and he sleeps right next to my bed. So when I set up on the edge of the bed and wait my couple of seconds, I turn on my phone and I look for him because I know he's right there, and I want to make sure I don't step on his paws as I get up. So, but I have had many patients that have tripped over a cat or a dog toy. So be on the lookout for those things before you get up and start walking. Kind of get an idea of where they are and see if that doesn't help you from having a fall. Okay, those are just some highlights. If you ever feel like you're starting to have problems with your dizziness or balance, you can always contact a professional, see if your doctor will give you a prescription for some physical therapy. There's things that can be done. They can also do home safety evals if you're not quite sure things are set up appropriately for you. But I don't want to take up all the time, so I'm going to pass it back to Fiona. If you have any questions, catch me later. Thank you.
Thank you, Galen. And I did want to talk to Denise Shepard. Denise has the unique feather in her cap of running a national Alzheimer's support group. And I sat in on one of their meetings. They are very knowledgeable about diet, exercise, sleep, stress. They kind of follow the Bredesen protocol. And just very quickly, just kind of tell us a little bit about socialization with a group.
Well, Fiona makes it sound very, very important.
Just put your lips on it. Yep.
I'm sorry. Fiona makes this sound very, very important, but actually what happened is I was in an online group very similar to this, and it was a Bredesen group, Facebook group, and there was a seminar, and I don't know how many hundreds of people were on there, but at the end, they said, is there anyone that would like to form a little group, and you can talk to each other, monthly, weekly, or whatever, and just share ideas. And so about 10 of us ended up with this one health coach, and we formed a little Zoom group, and that was about 2.5 years ago. 6 of us have met every week. We have a standing 7 o'clock meeting on Tuesdays, and I look out here and I think, you've got your little group that you guys could get together and share with each other. I mean, each table that's out here could form a support group for their own. Mine happens to be, we have a husband and wife in Boston, and Huguette is suffering from dementia and is kind of going downhill. Bill and Barb in Colorado, she has dementia, and Paris I think he's in Florida, his parents, Janet in South Carolina, it's her mom and her husband, and about 1 minute. But anyway, we all share knowledge about what's working, what's not working. And I see where so many of you could get together and do the same thing, either in person or, at a restaurant every week, or, form a little Zoom meeting. But it's so helpful. We learn so much from each other. And it's just, we will continue on as friends for however long we are still there.
And I think
Thank
it's
you.
so admirable to be working in today's technology. You can impress your great-grandkids that you are in an international or national group talking about topics of interest to you. So that is really awesome.
I joined the group just to, to sit in, and I learned things from them. And a lot of Alzheimer's research has actually come from people who are either taking care of somebody with Alzheimer's or who have Alzheimer's. There's a lady, if you should look her up, her name is Julie Gregory. She's an APOE 44, which means both her parents. and very intelligent lady, and she basically wrote half of Dr. Dale Bredesen's program just by her experience. So a lot of you out there can share a lot of great information with each other, and we all learn from that. So communication is key. I appreciate your time. Thank you guys so much. You're always the greatest audience. And if you have a question, also Keto, I call her Keto Carrie, but it's Keto On with Carrie. Back in the back, she's in Derby, and she brought us some free snacks. Ketogenic diet is good for the brain. And the KU Alzheimer's Research Center did a study with ketogenic diet and Mediterranean diet. So they're actually studying a little bit of that right now. And then we also have our Changing Minds table, and of course, all the great sponsors as well. So thank you guys so much. We're going to give the mic to our girls.
Great job. Great job. You guys stay close.
Okay.
Talking about forgetting things, this is super embarrassing. Because I have Eric here from the Mental Health Association, and I invited him, and in fact, begged him to be here for the panel. And then Paulette, who we've heard from before, we've heard from Eric before, but they're here to present as well. So you two, come on up. Let's hear from you. And then we'll hear from the attorneys, and then you'll be able to ask questions. So start writing your questions down that you have, and you can ask your questions, and we'll get answers for you. Oh, that'd be great, Fiona. And when you have a question and you do not share it and you tell me later, I always like that because at least you're asking, but I really would like you to ask it in here if you can, because you'll get better answers from different people. Plus, if you have a question, somebody else has the same question, and they might not be quite as brave as you are. And so when you ask a question, it helps get the information to everybody, okay? So put your questions down. All right, Eric, if you'll introduce yourself and educate us, that would be great. Okay. Oh, sorry. They might have turned it off. That one just has a switch. Yep. Okay, good.
Yes. So my name is Eric Littweiler. I'm the Director of Communications with the Mental Health Association of South Central Kansas. I'm just here because we do have a division. We have about 35 programs in a given year for people across the lifespan. We have an entire division of programs dedicated just to senior mental health. So serving the people I call post-retirement years. It's all about what a lot of these ladies talked about, just finding ways of helping that age group socialize, helping them avoid scams or abuse from family members or strangers, having places to report it if you do see signs of scams or abuse. So a variety of programs for the mental health of older folks. We obviously know there's a real strong connection between mental and physical health. So everything that's been talked about is great for both physical and mental health, whether it's diet, exercise, getting enough sleep, pets, all those sorts of things we know are good both for physical and mental health. And mental health is a big part of keeping you all strong and healthy in your older years. So that's why I'm here.
Wow. You can tell he's professional. Has everyone up here, but he's actually he had a radio show, and so, boy, you can really pack it in there. That is fantastic. Okay, I'm going to switch it over to Paulette. Oh, you got a mic. Okay.
I've already got one.
Good.
Thank you so much, Catherine.
Perfect.
Thanks for having me. My name is Paulette Heater. I am a speech-language pathologist, and I'm the owner of Stay Home Solutions, and I help seniors stay in their homes and age in place. I am didn't know I was presenting, just thought I was on the panel, so I'm going to ad-lib, which I can do quite well. So how many of you know what a speech-language pathologist does? Oh, Fiona knows. So one thing that's a misconception is that a speech therapist works with just speech. You think of them as in the schools, helping your granddaughter or your grandson, learning to say the R sound. Or, maybe you think of them in the hospital, working with somebody who's had a laryngectomy because that interrupts their speech. But really, speech is much more and a larger scope than what you think. Our brains, as we've been talking about all day, help us form speech. So if something's wrong with our brain, what do you think happens to our language? It can change. We can have a deterioration in language. So as a speech-language pathologist, I work with people and exercise their minds. It's kind of a mental fitness that we've been talking about this whole time. and that neuroplasticity that we spoke of, that we now know that we can actually build some neurons when we do it right and we do it well. Another thing that speech-language pathologists do that maybe you're not aware of, and this does happen with dementia, is we help people learn and modify their ability to swallow. So when you have dementia, it may start interrupting your ability to swallow. Swallowing is innate. We learn to swallow in our mother's womb. It's something we don't even think about, just like breathing. We just do it. Well, after a while, if you have dementia and that part of the brain has been affected, you're going to have trouble swallowing. So we get in there and we help caregivers with strategies. We modify diets, we modify textures, we do some positioning, and we help that person maintain oral intake for as long as possible. So just letting you know kind of what a speech-language pathologist does. And I honestly think we need to change the title. It needs to be something like speech cognitive swallowing therapist. That would be more precise.
I think that's a great point, Paula, because I had no idea what you did till you really explained it to me. And I think my title needs to change too, because sometimes what we do is so broad, and people will hear a certain title and not really grasp what all we're able to do. And you also have an occupational therapist and physical therapist that work with you and come to the home, and
That's
it's covered
correct.
by Medicare.
Yes, that's correct.
That's amazing. So, all right. Did you have anything to add to that, Paula?
No, I don't. If
Okay.
you have any questions, I'm over there. Just come on by.
You know what? We're doing so good. We're going to have plenty of time for the attorneys to talk. Let's get some Q&A going for the people up here. So some of your medical questions. I'll come around with the mic.
Okay, my concern is that a lot of people, as they're aging, maybe their spouse dies before them, and they may live on for quite a while afterwards. How do they know if they're living alone and if their family isn't checking in on them regularly? How do they know if they're developing dementia if they're so far gone they don't know it?
Oh, that is such a great question, and that is probably one of the most important things is, becoming isolated and not having those contacts. So, Raina?
So part of my story is that I actually lost both of my parents to Alzheimer's disease, and they passed away 20 years apart. So my mom was only 53 when she was diagnosed. She lived 12 years with the disease, and then 7 years later, my dad was diagnosed. And my dad, who was living alone at the time, called and said, Raina, I'm kind of worried. And I said, what's up? And he said, I think there's something wrong with my memory. So I think trust your gut would be my very first thing. Would definitely, if you're concerned, ask. Go to the doctor. There's those screenings that we talked about. Part of your Medicare screening annually should be a mental health screening, just a simple screening to see how you're doing. The other thing is take advantage of your socialization. Get that community that you see regularly, because your loved ones, they love you. Whether they're family or not, those friends love you too, and they're going to be expressing concerns. So be open when someone says, I'm kind of worried about you. And listen to that and go ahead and talk to the doctor about it.
And I do remember that Teepa said that usually we will start noticing before anybody else does. So I just want to repeat what she said, to trust your own instinct.
I would add to that, too, that same-age caregivers are something like 90% of the time a same-age caregiver or spousal caregiver will pass away before the person they're providing care for, because that individual is neglecting their own socialization, their own mental health, their own physical health, their own diet, you name it, in the name of providing care for another person. And so 90% of the time they will pass away first. I think what your question and what that statistic points to is that when you are providing care for a same-age person, you cannot neglect those things. I understand you think you're doing them a favor, but if you've ridden in an airplane, they tell you put your own mask on before you help those around you. There's a reason for that. If you're dead, you can't help the person next to you. So take care of yourselves first, and that's a really good way of determining or hopefully getting ahead of some health issues that you may be experiencing yourself.
I'm wondering if there's some shame or fear attached to admitting to other people that there might be an issue, especially as people get really older in their homes and are isolated. I was just reading that kind of our natural animal instinct is that when we're weak as animals to hide, And so we see in housing, a lot of times people will isolate in their homes to the point where we had a great aunt and uncle that they didn't let anybody come over to their house. They stopped going places, and they were afraid the police or somebody would come to their door and take them away. And I just think the shame and fear is something to address quickly, and then we have a question over here too.
If you don't mind, I'll address that. So I know that is very true. I've worked in senior care for 20 plus years, and so many times somebody will have a decline in the beginning and they will hide it because they're afraid that if they tell anybody that they will have to change their environment, they'll have to do something they don't want to do. They want to either stay in their assisted living just the way they are, or maybe they're concerned that their children will take away some rights or privileges. The reality is, it's actually going to benefit you by telling them. If you hide it, it will get worse. If you talk about it right when it starts happening, you can get in front of it and help yourself.
And plus, by being connected here, you're educated, equipped, and empowered to know that there should be no shame or fear, and there should be no loss of empowerment to you. Your opinions are still valid. Where you want to live is still valid. You're a valid human being, and what you're going through is something that younger generations may go through. And if you can talk a little bit knowledgeably or let them know, you know, how you're plugged into the community, and that, you know, you're confident that you can't be taken advantage of, is basically what I'm trying to say. So, all right, let's hear a question from you.
More of a statement. I've been taking magnesium, and I take that usually during the day. And then Cherie, who came out to review our Medicare situation, and I strongly recommend her to all of you. She did a fabulous job. She told me that if I take magnesium earlier in the evening, like 6 or 7, as opposed to taking it at 9 o'clock when I take some other meds, that it will help me sleep. And I did not know that before, so I just wanted to pass that along for those of you that might need magnesium or might think about it. And I didn't get the name of the organization. The gentleman on the right was...
The Mental Health Association.
So is it the South Central Kansas? What's the whole thing?
Yeah, Mental Health Association of South Central Kansas is the full name. So depending on the program, we have some programs that only serve one county in the area. We have some programs where we've literally served people in 7 different states last year. So depends on the program what our geographic scope is, but the name is South Central Kansas.
And so they're nonprofit, and they have incredible resources and departments, and so they're definitely someone to check in with for almost anything that you might need. And so don't be scared that they're called the Mental Health Association, because they have a lot going on. And you've got companion programs and all kinds of things that could be a solution for someone too.
So our main office is at Central and Woodlawn. We have really 3 main facilities. Central and Woodlawn is our main office. Our outpatient counseling center is at Harry and Webb. And then we're a very large housing provider for people living with mental illness as well. So we have an office downtown that oversees all of our 300 units of housing in the area.
Okay, very good. All right, who's got a question? All right.
I just read something recently, and I just thought that it's important for people to. It said that testing has shown that drinking alcohol actually kills your brain cells. So you may want to look into that, because we all like our wine, a glass of wine or something, but we may want to be careful with that.
That's very depressing, Kim. No. Let's hear from the medical health professionals to see if they have some positive news.
Well, yes, in general, alcohol does kill brain cells, but I've also heard studies that a glass of red wine is good for you. So I'm not sure there's ever been definitive studies on how that impacts you long term.
Yeah. So
I will say, if you're worried at all about your alcohol consumption, there is a test that we can do at MHA to determine if you feel like you're over-consuming. I'll just leave it at that.
well, I'm hearing a lot of wisdom out here talking about moderation. Okay, who else has a question? Carl.
I have a concern that my mother and my grandmother both both passed away with Alzheimer's disease. I recently developed an autoimmune disease that the only drug that will help it is prednisone, and that has really affected my memory. My concern is, will that be a long-term problem with memory?
Fiona, run on up here.
That kind of thing can throw people for a loop, right? If something serious is forgotten. Yes, yeah.
So that's a great question, because some medications will cause brain change. And you've noticed it since you've started taking the prednisone, is that correct? So what you need to do is talk to your doctor, number one, okay? And then you might go ahead and optimize your health with the diet, exercise, sleep, stress. But let your doctor know, because what he's going to do is weigh the risk and benefit. That's what he's going to do. If he can do something else about your autoimmune disease, he may choose to do that. And some people will be on prednisone, no problem. Some people will be on it, and other things happen. My dad was on prednisone for COPD, and his skin was like paper thin. And he would get these huge skin tears, and that was just one of the things that it did to him. But it's a great drug. You know, if you have a breathing problem, they give you on prednisone, you're like, yeah. So you just need to talk to your doctor, weigh that risk and benefit. Absolutely.
So we really have to be advocates for ourselves, no matter what professionals we're talking to, because ultimately, you're it. You've got to think for yourself, or your loved ones helping you do that. And so you gather information and you see what makes sense for you, and you question things, and and ultimately decide for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, very important to talk to your doctor, but also stand your ground.
Maybe talk to a different doctor too.
Yep.
So if you've been coming for a while, I really believe in getting second opinions, and maybe an opinion from a doctor that doesn't take Medicare or insurance, because they have a lot more freedom in what they can tell you to do.
Right. Yeah.
Another question? My mom's here, by the way.
Hi,
Barbara,
Mom.
can you stand? I thought you stood me up.
Okay, this genetic test, APOE4, do you just go to your preferred physician for that, or who gives you that test?
Absolutely, yeah. And sometimes, I think Medicare will pay for it. I ought to ask. Will Medicare pay for an APOE4 test? So as long as it's medically necessary. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so if you're noticing any cognitive changes, and to be honest with you, most of us over age 70 will have some cognitive changes. Like I have said before, if I'm trying to remember a certain Mary, I'm Catholic. Do you know how many Marys I know? I have a hard time spitting it out, okay? So you've got a lot of information in your noggin. That's the problem sometimes, and it's hard to come up with things, okay? But if you're truly concerned, you can go to your doctor and do the APOE4. Also, I believe like a lot of the genetic testing that they do, like Ancestry and all of them, a lot of them offer it as well.
What about the speech therapy? Do you go to your doctor for that too?
Yeah.
You can qualify for speech therapy without any qualifying event. So if you have a change for yourself, if you think you have some mild cognitive loss, you can either see a speech therapist without your doctor knowing, and you pay cash for that, or you can go to your physician, ask them for an order, and then we bill your Medicares.
And Paulette, I'm imagining that if they contact you about that question, that you can help get that approved if that's how they want to do it, because you can talk to the doctor's office.
Yeah, we expedite all of that for you. So you really, if you wanted that, we would just take your information and figure it out and then let you know.
So part of empowerment is leverage. Leverage is systems, people, and tools that you can use to get better results. This is called leverage. Everyone on the outside of this room is leverage for you. And please thank them and visit with them if you have time today, and each time you come, before and after, because these are people in the community that we're bringing here so you can be connected to them, so you can use them as leverage. You can ask anyone any question, and they know who to send you to, okay? And if you don't know who to call, you can always call our main number, 686-4500. I answer that, and I'll point you. Or you can text me and say, hey, do you have the blonde, curly-haired lady's phone number? And I'll just text it back to you. Okay, and so we've got the resources for you. You got people. Okay.
I would just say for those of you on this side of the room who maybe didn't hear blonde, curly-haired lady, she said that yes, they will pay for it as long as it's medically necessary.
And we also have Humana back here as well, Greg Dane. Greg, did you have anything to add to that conversation? She covered it. Okay. All right, another question, and then we're going to bring the attorneys up. Okay. Can you believe we have 3 attorneys in this room? That's such respect that they're giving our group here. And I love that you're getting to meet some of the professionals in the room and that they're getting to meet you, because we want you to have all of your essential documents. And your great-granddaughter that just turned 18, she needs her essential documents as well. So if you're procrastinating, just know that an 18-year-old needs the same stuff that you do, and this is important, and you can help educate, equip, and empower your family.
I've been forgetful all of my life. In the first 3 years of my marriage, I called my husband Ralphie. I called him Ross. When does it stop being forgetfulness and becoming dementia?
I think it becomes a nickname by that point. I shall call you Ross.
Ross was my oldest brother, and Ralph was quite honored to be called Ross. So
Okay.
it was okay.
Okay.
Well, I will kind of paraphrase what somebody has basically already said, which is it's not when you forget where the key is, it's when you forget what the key is for.
Oh, good. Okay. So you knew it was the wrong name. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. You're good. Good.
Prairie View has a time for caregivers, and it's free, and it's very informational, and we get a lot out of it. It's for the caregivers only.
Wonderful, wonderful resource, absolutely.
And caregivers are so huge. Did you know that oftentimes the caregiver does not outlive the person that they're caring for because of the stress involved? And I would imagine that a lot of you have working relationships with Prairie View. And so caregivers need to also be taking care of their diet and their stress and all those things. Who would like to address that a little further?
Well, if you're a care partner to a person living with dementia, chances are you're older anyway. So we need to be shoring up our health either way, right? We need to pay attention to us. So what I have seen happen, and I think some people could also speak to this, is with care partners, if they do pass first, nobody else truly knows how to take care of that person living with dementia. Mm-hmm. And they end up in the worst nursing homes you can imagine, because they end up having what we would call behaviors, which is simply their brain trying to figure out what happened, what do I do next, my partner's gone, what am I going to do? So their stress level goes out the roof, and a lot of times they're very difficult to take care of because they've never had anybody else take care of them. Mm-hmm. I had a gentleman who was of a religious sect that was very strict, and his wife was the only one to take care of him, and he became extremely violent because his frontal lobe had been affected, and so he didn't have much impulse control, and we had a heck of a time getting him into a place, and it was a place that I wouldn't put anybody. Mm-hmm. So it's so very important to truly listen to that.
And so also remember that when you're thinking about going into independent living or assisted living or other things, the sooner you get in, sometimes the better, and some of them have tremendously long waiting lists. So get on a waiting list, maybe at a few different places. Go out for entertainment, go out and look around. Know where you would go if. Know where you would go if, and get on some waiting lists. Because if you qualify to get in someplace, you might end up in a better position later on than if you're looking for something when things are super, super bad. Also, utilize in-home care and home health. We have Pam Crawford back here. And so visit with her, because you want to start bringing leverage in, start bringing in-home care that helps with some of the duties around the house and just companionship, and then home health. And utilize the services that are out there so that you can protect your own well-being and be there for your loved one, and and hopefully survive.
Catherine, I also wanted to mention I have a podcast called A Season of Caring Podcast, and it's for family caregivers. I think knowledge is power. And so hearing other people's stories and their experiences and then learning about the resources available can be very powerful.
Great. And you wrote a book.
Yes.
Do you have your books here?
My books are here, yes. No
Okay.
Regrets, Hope for Your Caregiving Season. That's our story as a family and caring for my parents as they journey through
And she's
Alzheimer's.
had a lot of recognition on this book. It's a beautiful book, and you can see her about that or order it. And so that's why she's here, is to help be a connection for you. So can you all stay nearby, because they're probably going to have more questions, but let's bring up the attorneys. Okay, so we have 2 attorneys from Fleece and Gooing. Thank you very much. And we have Alex from Morris Lang. Morris Lang is supporting our seminar program. And these gentlemen and their firm are supporting the television program. They're working on their commercial. Okay. I very much would like for everyone to take advantage of the fact that these young men are here and that they're knowledgeable and they have extreme expertise. And I can't tell you how much respect I believe you're showing by coming to this event. It just makes me tear up. So these guys are here to answer your questions. Make sure you do a consult with attorneys that specialize in the essential items that you need and get things taken care of. All right.
Before we get into that, I just wanted to reiterate about the falls in the home. So I had the pleasure of having my parents over for a week about a month ago. And when they were here, my mom has almost no mobility. We're trying to get her into a wheelchair. She's pretty resistant to it. And so my dad, my wife and I and my kids went out and did something. And she said, "Don't worry about it, I'll be fine." And she decided to take a shower by herself. And when we came home 3 hours later, she was on the floor and had been there for who knows how long. And I asked her, what happened? And she told me that she generally had my dad help out with her showers, but she was embarrassed because she didn't want us to know where she was. And so that was completely preventable. She could have just said, hey, here's where we are in our life. And she didn't, because she was prideful and it was embarrassing for her. And then 3 days later, my dad, who apparently hadn't learned the lesson, decided that he was going to get on our roof to make sure that and he's 76 years old. So I told him multiple times not to get on the roof, and as soon as he got on the roof, he said, "Oh, I've made a mistake." And so he'd lied to himself about where he was. My mom knew where she was, but she hid that because she was scared of how we would react. And my dad lied to himself about where he was because it's hard to admit that you can't do all the things that you used to do. And so I've preached this before every time I come up here, is be honest with yourself and be honest with the people in your life so that you get the best care and the best support that you can, because you deserve it. And I know at your age, you've been helping other people for decades, and so it's not comfortable and it's not normal and it doesn't feel right to ask for help. But if you need help, you need to ask for it, because otherwise you end up like my mom or you end up like my dad, and I had to get him off the roof and it was uncomfortable for everyone involved. So just wanted to say that before we get going. We're going to talk a little bit about estate planning and Alzheimer's. I'll just get us kicked off real quick. Capacity is something that we always worry about as attorneys in estate planning. And luckily, for estate planning, capacity is at the lowest level. If you're signing a contract or you're doing other things, your capacity needs to be up here. If you're signing a will, your capacity is down here. You only need to know 2 things to be able to sign a will. You need to know how much property you have, and that doesn't mean I'm going to ask you how many pieces of silverware you have, and if you don't give me the right answer, you can't do it. It just means, in general, what property you have. And then you need to know who you're going to give it to. So even if you've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or diagnosed with dementia, or someone in your family has, that doesn't mean that they can't do estate planning. It means that we need to chat with them and make sure that we're comfortable that they have the cognitive ability to know those 2 things. And it can be that they might not know it on Wednesday, but on Thursday they come back in and they know those things, and we're able to go from there. There's lots of case law out there that says, you know, signing a will and transferring your property to the people you want it to is an important right in Kansas, and therefore the courts are very much on your side. If you can come in and tell us those things, I will make a contemporaneous record of it and note it down that I asked you those questions, and you're able to sign a will, or your husband or your wife or someone that you care about is able to sign a will and get those estate planning documents done.
Yeah, and just to follow up on what Alex said there, you know, the test for capacity to make estate planning decisions is fairly low. However, that's not a reason to wait. We see at our firm a lot of disputes that occur with respect to people's estate planning documents, and it probably wouldn't surprise you to learn that most of the times it's when a document is signed, not when somebody is clearly of capacity, but when there's questions about it. So son or daughter who's assisting mom or dad takes them to the lawyer to have a document drawn up, and maybe some other siblings that aren't involved after mom or dad passes away find out that a will was signed at this time, and they don't think that mom or dad had capacity. And so it's a good idea to get those things done when there's no questions about it. And I will add another point, sort of tacking on to what Alex said about the lawyer being able to document, take contemporaneous notes about that meeting. You know, there are other ways besides a will that people try to handle their estate planning on their own, and you know, some of those different ways are appropriate in certain circumstances, and other times it's not. But you know, for instance, you can make changes to how your property would pass by beneficiary designations. Well, you know, those are good, but oftentimes those are done privately, sometimes online. And there's not a real good record made of what your condition was at the time that those were done. Even if you do it through a financial planner at their office, they don't typically keep the same kind of records and aren't assessing maybe in the same way that an estate planning attorney would. So another advantage of coming in, even if you think, boy, I've got my son or daughter on this account and I've got beneficiary designations here, it's a good idea because the attorney is your advocate even when you're not here. They're an advocate for your estate plan that you put in place. So you really give your plan a little more credibility, and you have, you know, sort of built in a witness and somebody. As lawyers, and for estate planning lawyers, we represent you. You know, it doesn't matter who brought you in, or maybe if you have somebody helping you out that's contacted us, you're our client. And so our fiduciary duty is to you. And so we make very good witnesses after the fact when wills are contested, that it was in fact what your wishes were, and that you understood fully what you wanted to do.
I'd just add on to that real briefly. If you're going to get your wills done and it's or your estate planning done and it's not with us, and they allow someone else to be in the room with you at the very beginning, so when if you're brought in by your son or your daughter, or you know, a friend or whatever it is, and they're not talking to you alone, that's a big red flag, because we need to meet with you alone to make sure that you're not being unduly influenced, you're not under duress, and that you have capacity. We want to do those alone so that we know that person sitting next to you isn't influencing what you say to us. So if you go in and you don't have that one-on-one meeting with the attorney, you need to come see us. But two, you need to be an advocate for yourself and say, hey, I'm worried that, you know, my son or daughter or my grandchildren or whatever it is might contest this later on, and I want the record to be clear that just because so-and-so brought me here, they're not influencing my decision, and I want to meet with you alone. Because if that's not the case, that's one of the things the court looks at very closely is, hey, was this person brought in by someone else? Were they sitting in on the meeting? Were they answering questions? Those are all things that you need to be doing by yourself. And if that's not happening, whether it's because the attorney is allowing it to happen or because that person is saying, no, I want to be there, that can have a huge negative impact on your estate planning after you pass. And a lot of the money that you were hoping would go to certain people is instead coming to us because we're in a fight over what's going on.
And so that's a key point. You want to get this figured out ahead of time the right way because it's going to cost you or somebody else a lot more money. So these are nice looking guys, but maybe you don't want their whole estate to go to your whole estate to go to them. All right.
Just to touch on a little bit on capacity, I mean, that's another added factor of going and getting your estate planning done now is planning for the possibility of not having capacity, that you're going to have dementia or struggle with Alzheimer's or something like that, because we can work with you on setting up powers of attorney for financial decisions, healthcare decisions, setting up a revocable trust to make sure that your assets are being taken care of. You can plan for in advance of the possibility of you not being able to make those decisions. And when that event does occur, we're there to help your family members walk through what it looks like in that transition. One of the benefits of having attorneys is we've gone through it before. We've advised family members before. We're also counselors at law. We serve to both advise you, but then also to help your family members as they go through those times, those transitions, whether it's a change in capacity or if it's a death or a disability. So, we're a great resource both for you in planning on the front end, but also for your family in going through those difficult transitions.
And so I just want to make sure you heard that you can contact your attorney with things that are happening in your life so they can give you counsel and advice or resources. And a lot of times when you're making a big transition in your life, your attorney is going to be involved in that, and it's wise to bring them in. Your wealth advisor, your financial planner, your Medicare person, these are really important people to be involved as you're making big decisions. They are a fiduciary and they're looking out for your best interests.
And one of those categories that the panel was talking about earlier is stress, right? There's nothing more stressful than having your significant other die. And a huge portion of that is that you don't know what's going to happen after they pass away. How do things get taken care of? If you have the correct estate planning in place, I had someone come to me the other day. She told me, my husband died on Monday, and I don't know what to do. And we walked through what needed to happen, and in reality, all we needed to do was file her husband's will to preserve it. Everything else was going to continue on, and she didn't need to do really anything on her end because we had the correct estate planning in place. And so that took away a major stressor in her life. She said, oh, wow, that's amazing. Okay, I was really, really worried about that, and now that's not something I have to worry about. She was able to focus on getting everything else done that she needed to and making this huge change in her life. And that's because she'd come in early and set up those mechanisms so that everything that occurred happened automatically, and she didn't have to worry about it. So having the correct plan in place doesn't only help you, it helps your spouse, it helps your children, because they're able to make these transitions. And they're already dealing with enough when someone they love and care about passes away. They don't need to jump through a whole bunch of hoops as well. So that's where we come in, and our job is to make that as easy as possible, both for you and for them.
All right, who has a question for the panel of attorneys? Great. Queen Connie, our famous red hatter here.
My son passed away 2 years ago. We have a living estate, but he was supposed to be our executor. And my sister is second in line, but she's not in real good health either, and she's in Nevada. I would like to have my daughter-in-law be, this is the problem, we're remarrieds, and I would like to have my daughter-in-law be the executor because my husband's children are all out of town and they have not a clue of what's going on. So anyway, can I just change that draw a line through it and change it, or do I have to see an attorney to get it changed just for one name?
You'd need to see an attorney to get that changed. Changes to wills are very closely monitored by the court because wills are such important documents. They don't like to see lines through documents, even if you've put your initials next to it, because when you think about it, a will needs to have 2 witnesses to it, and any changes to it you're probably doing on your own, and therefore there are no witnesses. And so when you pass, there's not going to be anyone there to say, oh yeah, she made that change, I know this person passed away. A judge is almost certainly not going to accept that, and so you do need to see an attorney to make that change.
And I'm just picturing a poor daughter-in-law, like, oh yeah, your daughter-in-law changed it, sure. So no, anything to do with legal, you need to do it with the legal.
And then just to follow up on that, your powers of attorney probably also need to be changed, because most people have the same person as executor as they have for their agents on their healthcare and financial powers of attorney. So probably all those documents need to get changed up.
Mm-hmm. And so you need to make sure that your executor is somebody who's capable of doing it and wants to do it, and they know what it is. Because if they haven't done it before, it might be way more than what they anticipate, and they don't know what they're getting themselves into. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And on that point, it's important to let the individual who you've appointed know, and also know where to get the document. We run into this oftentimes where somebody passes away. Did they have a will? We don't know. Maybe it's in a safe deposit box that nobody has access to now. Or maybe it just, a son or daughter believed mom had a will at one point in time, but they can't locate it. So I think it's important for you to notify those people, whether it's an agent under a power of attorney document or it's an executor on a will, that they first have been nominated to serve in that role, and then also where they can get a hold of those documents.
And get a hold of the attorney, too, because if they know, you're to call my attorney has all my instructions, because sometimes people have very detailed instructions, like call Catherine and Randy, get the locks changed. Catherine's supposed to take my dog. We work to get all your instructions together, and they can keep that for your family and to make sure that everything gets taken care of the way you want it.
By a show of hands, who keeps their important documents in their safe deposit box at their bank? Okay. That's something that I generally ask people not to keep their wills in the safe deposit box, because the court wants the original will before they're going to issue what we call letters testamentary, or the ability to have the authority to do things for the estate. And then the bank wants those letters testamentary before they let you into the safe deposit box. Now, some banks will say, sure, we'll have someone walk in with you and monitor while you pull out the will, and then we'll check to make sure that you're the executor on the will. But I've found it's never good to rely on a bank to be empathetic, right? That's not a place we want to be.
All right.
So make sure you have them in your house somewhere in a fireproof safe, and then again, let people know where those are so that they can come get those when the time is right.
All right, we'll do 2 more quick questions. I know we're running over. If you have to leave, don't be shy. You can leave. But if you're here to get more information, let's get some.
This is just a quick question, but I'm an only kid. So when the last parent goes, will I automatically get the house?
Yeah, well, assuming it's in your parent's name and there's not a transfer on death deed that's been filed, then if you are the sole heir, then that property would pass to you. There are still advantages to having a will, even in the event you're the sole heir, or if the heirs all get along and agree, and mom and dad wants to leave things equally. There's procedurally the probate process is a little smoother with a will than without a will. But certainly, if that's what I always tell my clients. We all have estate plans already, even if you've never sat down and made one. The people in Topeka have already made one for you, so they've determined where your property is going to pass after your death. If you want to change that, or you want to have more control over that, then that's where a will comes in.
So I'm guessing the Topeka estate plan sucks.
Well,
Forgive my language.
It's not necessarily bad, but by its nature, it's one size fits all.
Okay, and so
that
wouldn't it be as
situation-
good as custom tailoring one
Right.
with you guys? Can you avoid probate
Yes.
with
I mean,
different docs?
Yeah, you could completely avoid probate if you have beneficiary designations on your accounts, if you have a transfer on death deed on your house, which that's what I was going to touch on is, if the house is not titled in a trust, if there's no transfer on death deed, then you have to go through a probate process to transfer title on real estate. That's the only way to do it. So that's another benefit to having some estate plan drawn up, to either have a transfer on death deed or to have a trust agreement. Revocable trust agreements are the biggest way to avoid probate. You essentially retitle it in this trust that survives and continues on after your passing. You nominate a trustee who would then be able to administer both your assets and your final distribution of those assets as all fully dictated by you in your trust agreement.
So obviously there's a lot that the attorneys can teach us, so we're going to be seeing a lot of them. Alex, you were going to say something, and then I'm going to segue.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that if they do have a will, I missed if you said if they had a will or not. If they have a will, they're not required to give you the house, even if you're their sole heir. I had a situation recently where someone came to me and said, my dad died, the house was his, is the house mine? We got his will, and he left the house to the Humane Society. I'm assuming for them to sell it and you have the proceeds. So it's not required that they do, but in the vast, vast majority of instances, parents will leave, all of their assets to their children.
Mm-hmm. So the flow of communication is really important.
Absolutely.
And anyway, wow. Plus, there's a better way to donate your house than just donating it maybe directly to the nonprofit that you want it to go to. Now, I know like the Health Association, they have that figured out, but some nonprofits don't. But this is really something to talk to your attorney about, and there's maybe a better way to do it so you can give money from your house equity to any nonprofit that you want to give it to. All right, we've got a question here from Judy.
I have a question regarding the living wills. During COVID, they have put patients on these life-giving machines. Now, if you have a living will and you're laying there, and you probably have mentioned to the doctor that you have a living will, do not resuscitate. Is that exactly what they're going to do, or is the doctor going to say, let's try XYZ? I've had friends during the COVID that have taken their living wills and torn them to shreds.
And why did they do that?
Because they want to be given, the opportunity, since during the COVID they've been giving this machine an opportunity to live, and they've been living.
So, all right.
We'll differentiate first between a DNR and a living will. So a DNR is something that really is for doctors and first responders. And the living will I think of more as additional instructions for whoever is your healthcare power of attorney.
Because that's what you really need,
Right.
is someone that's going to speak for you when you cannot, and that you have the proper documentation so that the hospital will pay attention.
Yeah, a DNR is more for the doctors to know that you don't want, any life saving at all. And for the most part, they recognize those. There's always a legal versus a practical issue. For example, there's a famous case where someone had a tattoo that's like a big tattoo across their chest that said, do not resuscitate. And first responders gave him life-saving aid and saved his life, and he sued. And they said, we don't have any way of knowing how long ago you got that or when it was, and so we were just doing what we're trained to do, which is to save your life.
How about that?
So they're different documents with different purposes, but getting those done through an attorney is the way to do it, because then it's much more likely that a doctor is going to follow through on your wishes. Again, it doesn't always happen. Doctors kind of do their own thing sometimes, but that's generally how it goes.
And, and paramedics and doctors, they're all concerned about their liability, their livelihood, and, their own home and their own families and that. And so that's why you've got to have your proper legal documentation and the proper decision makers involved and people that are really capable of doing it. And I know you're going to add something, but we've got a question. I think this will be the last public question, and then we'll start wrapping it up.
What if the will comes up missing after you're died, and you have a family member that has that will, but they say, well, we don't know where it is, and Mom gave it, and what will happen then? Now, if there is another family member that has a copy of that will that will hold up if she has the copy?
Yeah, so I think as Alex or Matt mentioned earlier, the original is important. Now, there is liability that somebody can be liable if they wrongfully withhold a will. So if somebody has in their possession an original will and they fail to offer that to probate within 6 months of somebody's death, because that's an important time frame. That's when a will has to be offered to probate. There can be liability to the people who are harmed because the property then passes Topeka's way instead of the way that you have in your will. So, and there's also proceedings in which if there's a belief that somebody has in their possession an original will, there are court proceedings that the court can order that person to come to court and then testify under oath and be examined about their possession or location or knowledge of that will.
And
the property is in another state.
If we're talking about real estate, then there actually has to be probate proceedings in that state as well. Each of the states have exclusive jurisdiction over real estate that's located within their borders.
And Catherine, do you mind if I just...
Yes, okay. And then I'm going to say that
we'll
that's a perfect segue for next month's topic, which is the truth about getting your affairs in order, bad blood and blended families.
Oh.
Who would hide your will?
It's going to be a Jerry Springer for sure.
So it's October next month. Can you believe it? Halloween. So we're going to talk about all the scary, all the frightful, all the crazy stories having to do with things that happen. So we're going to really entertain you with some good gossip and some good wisdom regarding all the things that can happen.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, in Kansas, the presumption is if we don't have the original will and we can't provide that to the court, that whoever drafted the will or whoever will it is destroyed it. So having a copy can work. Courts really do not like to accept copies, and so it's very important to know where your original will is and to let people know where it is, so we're not having to try to go to court with a copy.
Can't you guys keep the original? So maybe you have a copy and everybody knows. Call Jason, call Matthew, call Alex. They have my stuff.
Some people do that. I personally do not, because if our place burns down or I can't find it or it's misfiled, I don't want to be liable for having an original. And so I tell people, you're an adult. You can keep your documents, and that way it's on you and it's not on me. It's the one time where I do that because I just don't want to be liable for, I don't know how much money someone has, and I don't want to be sued for $400,000 because I filed it under someone else's name. So.
All right. We're going to give you guys a month to think about all your craziest, spookiest, most frightening, funny stories so you can share the good stuff with us next month, because there's nothing better than learning through humor and a little shock and awe. So, and we're going to bring some wealth advisors and Medicare people also, maybe people in senior living that can help share some of these stories. And I know we need to cut it. Did you have anything that is burning that somebody needs to know before we close?
No, I don't think so. We'll hang out at the table for a little bit after if anybody has any questions for us.
Please give these gentlemen your best applause for giving their time. They will not be billing you, not tracking billable hours. You will not receive a bill. So it's really amazing. Please thank everyone that supports us. Something I need from you is the survey to tell us how you think we're doing. And what questions you have or people you need to know. We read these immediately when we get done, and we respond to all of it. And so tell us how we're doing and what we can do to improve. Thank you so much for being here.